How did I buy a brand new 2023 C8 Corvette in my 20s? That is a question I get asked all the time, and I've never really addressed it online. Most people just kind of assume that I'm like a daddy's money kid, trust fund baby, or that it was bought for me. So I guess today we're gonna be making a video that's a little bit personal, but we're gonna be going over exactly how I got my Rapid Blue 2023 C8 Corvette. And of course, this video is not meant to be financial advice. If anything, I don't recommend anyone doing what we're about to discuss. But anyways, let's get right into it. How did I buy my 2023 C8 Corvette? So to start everything off, and I guess address the elephant in the room, Cody, are you a daddy's money kid? Is the car bought from your parents, from your grandparents, or anything? Flat out, no. The car was not bought from my parents, grandparents, or anyone. Every single dollar that has been put into this car has been from my own working labor, either from my job or from other streams of income. Probably the main thing that people always wonder is whether or not it is from my parents or whatnot. So now that we got that out of the way, we can get into story time, which is gonna bring us back to like 2021. So during 2021, I had a pro-charged Mach 1 Mustang. It was a 2004, probably valued around $12,000. Not a very expensive car. And then at the time, I also had a 2006 Acura RSX. Some of you guys might remember the Mach 1 from my channel. It's kind of how I got started doing social media and whatnot. But if you don't, here is a picture that I keep in the garage of the actual Mach 1 itself. It's pretty nice. I had just graduated college. I was working as a mechanic for Ford, making less than $50,000 a year. I was doing social media content, a little bit on TikTok, not really making any money on social media whatsoever. And then also working, like I said, as a technician at Ford, making less than 50 grand a year. At the time, I believe I was 23 years old, still living with my mom at the house, so very little living expenses. I loved making car content. As you can see today, I am still making car content. It's just what I love to do. But I've always wanted to make social media and like YouTube my full-time job. It's always been a dream job of mine. So I got to thinking, and I wasn't really happy with where I was. So I just wanted to take it to like the next level. And I got to thinking, and I was like, well, what if I switched up the cars? Now fast forward a few weeks, and I'm sitting there with my buddies in their living room, and I'm just kind of scrolling on my phone, and I see a Rapid Blue C8 Corvette. And mind you, the C8s are only out for a few years, I think like 2 years at the time, so they were still fairly new. I hadn't really even looked into them whatsoever. They were extremely out of my price range, so I just didn't really care. But whenever I saw that car, something just clicked in my mind, and I was like, I have to have that. Like I said, I was already kind of looking for the next step with my channel, and I was like, wow, that would be amazing if I could get a car like that. So I jokingly told all my friends, I was like, hey, I think I'm gonna buy a C8 Corvette. And of course, we all just kind of laughed because it was unrealistic. I was making less than $50,000. I had debts on both of my cars at the time, both the RSX and the Mach 1. So I was just in no position to buy a car like that. And also, for those of you that don't know, at the time, Stingrays like mine were going for $10,000 to $20,000 over MSRP. And of course, for the next couple of weeks, I just slowly started to obsess over the car, looking at more photos like, wow, this car is awesome. It's mid-engine, like it has all the cool stuff. It has a DCT transmission. Like I just became obsessed with the C8 Corvette 100%, to the point where I actually posted my Mach 1 up for sale and essentially sold that car. I sold it, paid off the debt on my RSX and the debt on the Mustang. Obviously, I was left with about $6,000 left over. Not a lot of money, I know. All right, so it is now 2022. I have a paid off Acura RSX. We sold the Mustang. I have $6,000 in the bank. I'm making less than $50,000 a year. But at least I don't have any like, rent or anything because I'm still at the time living with my mom. Nonetheless, I still could not afford a $1,000 or $1,200 a month payment on a brand new C8 Corvette, especially whenever insurance for my age would be about $500. So it was just out of my price range still. But that didn't stop me. I got to thinking and I was like, well, if I buy the car and I make car content with the vehicle and I make money from that car content, maybe it can in turn pay for the car. And like my delusional self was like, yeah, that's a great idea, Cody. I was like, buy the car, it'll be fun. You can make car content with it, which is what you want your full-time job to be. And the car content can pay for the car. And I'm like, that's a genius idea. No, looking back on it, it was stupid. It was so reckless, but that's where my mind was. So I immediately go up to the Chevrolet dealership and I'm like, hey, I want to place an order for a C8 Corvette. Now at the time, wait lists for C8 Corvette Stingrays were anywhere from like 6 months to a year before your order is accepted. I knew this from the research that I've done on the car for the past couple of weeks and whatnot. And my initial plan was pretty much, hey, I have $6,000 right now to put down on the vehicle. I definitely can't afford the monthly payment with only putting $6,000 down. I need to save up money like my life depends on it, essentially. I need to be so frugal that by the time my car gets here, I have enough money to put down on it to where I'm not gonna be drowning in a monthly payment, and also enough money to put down where the bank's not gonna look at me and be like, bro, you make less than 50 grand a year and you wanna buy a C8 Corvette? So I told them the spec that I wanted with the C8 Corvette to kind of get the ball rolling on the ordering process. I obviously wanted a rapid blue one and I wanted a 1LT because it was the cheapest. Now over the next couple of weeks and months, I was living so frugal, it wasn't even funny. I did not go on any vacations. I worked all the time, saved every dollar that I could. I drove my Acura RSX everywhere because it was obviously the only car I had now. It had no AC. I did not fix anything on that car unless it was absolutely necessary for it to stay running to get me from work and whatnot. I saved every single dollar I could. And because the wait lists were so long for my order to actually be sent to Chevrolet and whatnot, I saved up quite a bit of money. And as the weeks turned to months, I slowly changed my order. I went from a 1LT to a 2LT, then I added a few things like mag ride and whatnot, and then I was already up to a certain price level where I was like, you know what? You might as well order a 3LT and get the matching blue interior, because I was like, for one, it's cool. And then for two, it might do better for social media and whatnot. And that's the whole reason I was essentially buying this car in the first place. And from the day I initially went up to the dealership and spoke with the Corvette manager about getting one to the day it was actually accepted by GM was approximately 9 months. By this time, I had roughly $30-something thousand saved up. So after your order gets accepted, they still have to build the car, and that took an additional 3 months. So we're almost pretty much at a full revolving year from whenever I initially ordered the car. And at this time I had nearly 40 grand saved up for the car. Now my MSRP for the C8 Corvette was $83,900. And after tax, title, and fees and whatnot, they told me it would be around 90 grand. Fast forward to the day my Corvette finally arrives to the dealership. This was probably one of the most nerve-wracking days for me because I had been waiting pretty much over a year to actually take delivery of this car, and I still at that moment was not sure if I was even going to be approved for the loan through the bank or whatnot. I didn't know if my down payment was enough, if I would need a co-signer and whatnot. I was trying to get my credit obviously as perfect as possible throughout that year. But there was just a lot of what ifs. I only wanted to put like 30,000 down on the C8 Corvette, so I have like a $10,000 safety pocket so I can make payments on the car until my social media hopefully started to pay for it. That means I still had to be financed for $60,000, guys. $60,000. I'm still only making like $48,000 a year. I can only imagine the look on the bank's face whenever they looked at that and they're like, how much does he make? Oh, so he's poor. So eventually they found a bank that was willing to take my money. They took my $30,000 down payment and gave me a loan for the 60 grand or whatever. My interest rate was 8.34%. and I had an 84-month term. My payments were somewhere around in the 1,100 range. I think it wasn't quite 1,100. I think it was like $1,078, $79, something like that. Basically $1,100 a month. Insurance on the car was $500 a month, which means the total for the vehicle is essentially $1,600 a month that I have to come up with. And like I said, I'm not making that much money. So yes, I did finance more than half of this vehicle whenever I first bought it. I've always wanted to do social media. I've always wanted cool cars like this, and I was willing to do whatever it took to kind of get that. And then I was like, well, once I get that, I'll figure out the next step and we'll just keep the ball rolling, and hopefully the whole thing works out. It was a very high risk, high reward situation that I was putting myself in. It was now time to get to work. I started making videos with it and whatnot like my life depended on it. About a year into owning this car and making content, I start making pretty decent money on YouTube, at least for what I'm used to. I got a small raise at work as well, so I'm probably making like $55,000 a year at work, and then about $500 to $800 a month on YouTube. And things just got a lot easier and whatnot to just have a little bit of extra money and do mods, make videos, and all that good stuff. Which brings us to 2024, which is just this past year, which is whenever my social media really grew the most in a singular year. I gained like 70,000 followers on Instagram. My YouTube went from like 4,000 to I think we're almost at 30,000 now, which is just mind-blowing to me. My monthly income was now to a point where the C8 was essentially free, and I was even able to buy a second Corvette, the C8 Corvette that you guys also see videos on, with that as well. So after essentially 2, maybe 3 years in the works, we were finally at like the end goal of my plan all along, albeit a very risky plan, but we kind of reached it, guys. We were there. So yeah, now it's obviously not a problem whatsoever affording these 2 cars and whatnot. I do social media still part-time. I'm not doing it full-time yet. I still work at a Ford dealership as a transmission tech. But the money is no longer really that big of an issue with these vehicles. I'm just having a lot of fun right now, and I really appreciate all of you guys' support that watch all of my videos and whatnot. Like I've kind of explained in this video, y'all are what are allowing me to even do this and have this car and whatnot. Thank you guys so much for watching all my stuff, and for all of you that support both my Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, whatever it is. I really, really appreciate it. Anyways, guys, that is pretty much how I bought a 2023 C8 Corvette brand new in my 20s while not making a lot of money. A little bit weird. I'm probably gonna get roasted in some of the comments. I fully expect that. This is a fairly personal video. I let out a lot of embarrassing information, I guess, if you really care. But at this point, I don't really care, and almost kind of just look at it as, hey, at least I wasn't just given the car. I do have a sense of pride because I did it fully myself. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like and subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next one.